we just listen?
Yeah, I think so.
Or are you going to send it to me?
Can you guys also put in a link to Comfort and Sweets in case I get disconnected?
Comfort and Sweet.
Yeah, Comfort and Sweets at Liberty International.
Are we on mute?
Yeah, we should be on mute.
You're not on mute, actually, but
Are we on mute?
No. That's going to be my first of all, welcome everybody who's here. I'm Adam Lawrence. I'm the president of the chapter for Foundation Fighting Blindness, the Los Angeles chapter. Thanks for joining us this evening. Again, thanks to our presenters for being here tonight, Dr. Wagner, her husband Eric, and Sonya. First things first, if everybody could mute their devices, that would be really helpful. And the keyboard commands for people using computers, I believe it's Alt-A. I'm not sure on a phone or device, but if you could do that, that would be great. We will have a question and answer period after each of the presentations, so please hold your questions until the end of the presentation and we can get that started. Also, I want to let everybody know that the Foundation does have a podcast app. So if you want to do a search on your smart device, it's basically Foundation Fighting Blindness. And if you want to do it on the web, it's www.fightingblindness.org/podcasts with an S at the end. There's also a YouTube channel, and that is the youtube.com/the @ F as in Frank, N Nancy, D dog, Fighting Blindness. Both will have notifications information on both the material we're covering tonight. They'll have the recording on the YouTube channel once it's up and available, and the podcast have some really great material. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our Vice President, Sherry, to give a few announcements, and we'll get started.
Again, thank you everybody for joining us, and especially to our speakers. This is going to be an exciting virtual event. We've got quite a few things planned already in the works, just to throw out some dates, but don't worry, you don't have to copy it all down. You'll be getting email blasts, you'll see things on social media pages. But just to entice you a little bit, in June 25th, we have another virtual event, and we were able to get Dr. Jackie Duncan. She's actually a specialist of retinal and age-related macular degeneration. And we haven't really covered AMD a whole lot, so that's going to be, I think, a lot of good information. She's also the professor of clinical ophthalmology, working on therapies to restore vision. So, you know, we're all in that camp, right? Then in July, we have our Vision Walk kickoff event. It's not actually Vision Walk, just to be clear, but it's our pre-Vision Walk event, and we're really excited. It's July 26th, and in addition to giving everybody all the information that you need to know about Vision Walk, including how to create a team, how to raise funds, where it is, the whole bit. We have a very, very honored guest who is just really excited to be with us. Her name is Priscilla Gagne. Some of you may know her. She is a 3-time Para-Olympian and a silver medalist in judo. And she's going to be with us in person. This is an in-person event. And she will be giving all of us a demonstration of judo, but in addition, how it's affected her life and how she got into this sport. So that's going to be very cool. It's actually going to be at Guide Dogs of America in Sylmar, again on July 26th. Then in August, on August 20th, we have another virtual event, and I know all of you are going to be there because it's on the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses. We have found an expert who knows everything we all want to know about these glasses, and he actually is a teacher at the Braille Institute who has agreed to be our guest speaker. So that's another event that's going to be pretty cool. And then last but not least, into September, I won't go more forward than that. September 13th, tattoo it on your arm, is Vision Walk. And we are going to be doing some super exciting stuff this year. Xavier Garcia, who is with us now this season, just has so many amazing ideas that he's been talking to our leadership team about. And we're really, really excited. I think it's going to be one of the best vision walks yet. So I hope you all note it. I hope you all come out for it. It's going to be at Crescent Bay Park again in Santa Monica. At the beach. Don't worry, you don't walk in the sand. There's really nice walking path, and it'll be a beautiful event. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shauna, who will introduce our very first speaker.
Thank you, Sherry. First, thank you everyone for being here tonight. For our first presentation, I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Ann Wagner and her husband, Eric Ringham. I have heard both of them speak at previous vision conferences that were recorded and are available online, and I'm excited that we're able to hear them live with the opportunity to ask questions after they have finished speaking. Dr. Ann Wagner is a board-certified clinical psychologist. She worked for 26 years on the PTSD clinical team at the Minneapolis VA healthcare system and has expertise and empirically supported interventions for the treatment of PTSD and other trauma-related problems. Though retired, she is professionally active as a consultant and invited guest speaker on a variety of topics, including mental health and vision loss. Dr. Wagner is blind due to RP, an inherited eye condition known for progressive night blindness and tunnel vision. She has delivered numerous local, national, and international presentations, including for the Foundation Fighting Blindness and the American Macular Degeneration Foundation, on the topics of complex grief, anxiety, depression, and resiliency related to vision loss or serving in a helper role. She welcomes curiosity and questions about RP. Her husband, Eric Ringham, is a semi-retired writer, editor, and actor. And with that, I'll turn the floor over to you, Dr. Wagner.
Thank you, Shauna, and thank you so much for inviting us to present. We've been looking forward to this. So I just want to give a little personal background. So I have retinitis pigmentosa, and as we know, there's over 100 gene types, and some are recessive, and some are what are called autosomal dominant, meaning if you inherit the RP, any child you have has a 50-50 chance of inheriting the eye condition.
Yes.
And so that is what runs in my family. So my mom inherited the RP from my grandpa, and my mom and dad had 5 children, and 4 of us inherited the RP. And I have cousins and some uncles with the RP. So I grew up sort of in a blind culture where those of us experiencing the RP understood what was happening and were there to support each other. And the people, our friends and family members who had vision, knew what we needed to help us the best way possible. So we grew up in a very respectful, accepting culture where we were viewed as equals, and our relatives trusted us to either figure it out, how to do things, or that we would ask for help when we needed it. And I know that's rare. I think the majority of people with vision loss may not even know of another person who is experiencing vision loss. So I know I have this history in my childhood that was a huge advantage for me. But it also kind of led me to realizing the importance of feeling belongingness and support and understanding to help cope with life's adversities. Because in broader society, at school, where I was not treated with respect, there's a lot of bullying because we're poor. I grew up on a farm, and farmers were not valued either. So there's a lot of othering, being different, and those messages of kind of being less than because I had, I was losing my vision. the broader society did not necessarily see us as equal. So it's really important, and why I think I went into psychology in therapy and addressing mental health issues is the critical importance of feeling safe and secure in relationships where we are seen as equals and that we have something to offer. Because there's a lot of stigma still in the world about disabilities, but I think it's changing. The good news is it's changing. So I just want you to kind of understand that a little bit about my background. So normally I like to speak for a couple of hours, so I'm only going to be able to share, I think, three of my principles that I learned and used professionally with thousands of veterans in my career for connecting to what needs healing and how to kind of move forward in the world with our integrity and showing up the way we most want to. So I'm going to share some like 3 principles. But first, I want to just address the issue that people experiencing progressive medical problems, including vision loss, are at higher risk for experiencing anxiety, depression, and especially complex grief. Now, regarding depression and anxiety, there's a study for people with retinitis pigmentosa that showed that people with RP are 5 to 6 times more likely than the general public to experience anxiety or depression, and 4 times more likely to experience both anxiety and depression. And it's really important to seek professional mental health care because, again, stigma for that sort of therapy I think it's almost virtually gone, actually, because so many people are seeking mental health services these days. So it's just really important. It's a sign that you care about your well-being and that you're functioning, and we need sometimes a trusted confidential place to be able to do that work. So and to be transparent, I like to let people know I sought therapy in graduate school. That's when I felt I needed it. It was incredibly helpful. And virtually all of my family members have sought therapy, and also like to be transparent about it because it helps. So I'm going to share a little bit about these principles of kind of coping and adjustment. And then Eric and I are going to talk a little bit about common dilemmas that might show up between a person with vision loss and the others in their lives, the helpers. We like to use the term sighted helper, but people may use other terms. So the principles I'm going to share with you are the ones I actually use every day myself, as well as in my professional work. And the first one is this idea, and it comes from narrative therapy developed by Michael White and David Epstein, but also acceptance and commitment therapy. If you were going to ask me for a recommendation of a type of therapy, I think narrative therapy and ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, are wonderful models. But it's the idea that emotions show up to tell us what we care about. And so when we think about complex grief, when it comes to people with vision loss, the complexity is in that for each progressive loss of vision, it can actually relate to multiple areas of functioning that can be affected that then require time to both grieve that sense of loss, but also time to explore new resources or to practice new blind skills. That's what my family calls all those strategies we learn. We call them the blind skills. And a lot of people maybe don't realize that there is a grief to losing flexibility for how we would prefer to use our time. I would much rather use my time to bake scones or spend time with my family than needing to go online to learn or explore other resources or having to practice some new skills because I've just lost some more vision, and suddenly there's many areas I need to figure out how am I going to move forward. But I do think it's one of, in my family anyway, the resiliency part is a superpower in terms of problem solving and figuring things out, but also knowing what resources And of course, I think a very important resource is each state has a rehabilitation program to help people learn the orientation mobility skills that can help us cope. But the counselors in those programs are not trained therapists. So it is important to seek therapy if you need that. But the grief itself, if emotions show up to tell us what we care about, so that's the principle. Every single emotion, it only shows up to tell us our values and what matters to us. And yet we've been taught so many messages in society that the painful emotions are somehow bad or toxic and we shouldn't feel what we feel. And yet, if something didn't matter to us, they wouldn't show up. So if I often share this story that I often, when I think about the fact that I can't see my grandson's faces, I have an almost 3-year-old grandson and a 7-month-old grandson. I can't see their faces, and grief shows up. And so the principle of understanding that that's trying to tell me something, well, it's telling me that I have an attachment to an idea. And we attach to all sorts of things. We attach to people, to things, to our own ideas, our own hopes and dreams for the future. And attachments can feel very, very real. And when reality gives us new information that that attachment will not happen, it's impossible, or it's just not going to be supported, then we have to detach from that attachment, and that's grief and loss. So when I experience the grief, it's telling me something really important. I am acknowledging the reality. I cannot see their faces. So then the next thing is, then I ask why? Why does that matter to me? And it'll be something like, I don't want to miss a single nuance of my experience with them. And then the next question, well, why? Why does that matter? What is the grief saying at my core, my deepest core self? What matters? And then the answer is that I stand for loving, enduring relationships, and I want to be present and experience every nuance I can. The core, deepest value is love and how I want to show up in loving relationships. So if I have compassion for the grief and I understand what it's trying to tell me, we always end up at this, we can end up at this core of our values. And at that level, there are always ways we can act on that value, even if the one idea cannot be acted on. I can't see their faces, but I certainly can show up as a loving grandma. And at that level, we may even think about all the messages we have about being loving. Do we have role models in our lives? Are there characters from books that can inform us, that we can resonate with? How do we want to show up? So at that level, memories of my mom and how she was with her grandkids. She couldn't see their faces when they were born. And so she had a pattern of saying to them, may I braille your face? And she would feel their faces. And as they grew up, periodically, she'd say, you've grown, I want to feel your face, see how you're changing. And so I have this memory that shows up of my nieces when they were like 12 or 13 or 14. They always liked to go to my mom and dad's to get ready for school dances. And I was visiting one weekend, and they'd bring their dresses and their makeup, and they'd hog the guest bedroom and the bathroom. And then they'd come out and they'd say, okay, Grandma, we're ready for you to braille us. And this memory is so vivid of my mom brailing their faces and their bows, and the lace of their dresses and their fancy hairdos, and her oohs and ahs and their giggles and laughter, and they're describing the colors to her. And the room was filled with joy, delight, and love. It didn't matter one bit that my mom couldn't see them. So I have all these experiences that help me show up as a loving grandma, even though the grief is telling me that, yes, of course, I wish I could see their faces, but it's affirming this deeper value that I love them and I can act on that. So every emotion shows up to tell us what we care about. And it's also important to know that it's not just the person with vision loss experiencing the complexities of the grief and loss. It's also the people in our lives. And so I'm going to let Eric I'm just going to ask you, Eric, to share. First, just ask, do you experience grief related to the RP?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard for me to watch you unable to see things that I can see, and to see your vision deteriorating, and to see that things that you could see even a year or two ago are pretty impossible for you now, a lot harder. So I feel that loss. Of course, not as much as you do, but I do feel it.
Is it more like empathy
Yeah,
and
right.
the sorrow for that?
Yeah,
Mhm.
because I care for you.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, so what is the grief telling you about what you care about?
I love you.
Yeah, but what else in terms of grief?
Well, it's part of how I experience the world, is to talk about things, and to get whoever I'm with to share the things that I see. My mom brought me up that way. She used to take me out to look at shooting stars, and she'd try to get me to see one. And when I would finally see it, it was this big moment of celebration that we were both able to see the same thing at the same time. Same thing with the Northern Lights with my family. Everybody had to run out. Everybody had to see it. We had to share that experience. And now I still see natural wonders all the time, and I yell to Anne about them. There's an eagle flying right over the house, and she won't even try to look. And I know that it doesn't make any sense for me to wish that she would try, because she can't.
And
But
that's-
even so, the other day we were driving just a couple miles from here, and a deer hopped into the road. We live in a city, but this deer was right in front of our car, and I slowed down abruptly, and I said, "There's a deer right there."
He was thrilled. He
I
loves
was thrilled,
nature.
but
Yeah.
I might as well have been at a stoplight for all Anne knew.
Yes.
So
So the
that's
grief,
hard for me.
yeah. And so what do you think the grief in those moments is telling you?
Well, it's telling me, A, that I'm sad that you can't see them, but B, that I'm sad because it takes away from my ability to feel like I'm fully experiencing it if I can't share it with you.
Yeah. So there's a grief there that there's nothing that you can do, like the helplessness that shows up to tell us all the things we can't control. There's nothing you can do to make my eyes see what you're seeing.
That's right. And I can try to describe.
And he does. And so at that deeper level, the value of wanting to share a joyful experience with me, even if it can't be shared the same way, it's kind of what I'm talking about of these principles and how helpful they can be. Is he can still share his stories of joy. He can describe the eagle or the deer, and I can hear it in his voice. And delight in it with him. And we now have a memory of that joyful moment, even if it isn't shared the same. And we, of course, find many other things to do where we can enhance our feeling of love and belongingness in our relationship. So these principles aren't about not feeling the emotions or getting rid of them or making them go away faster. It's really just about acknowledging they're real, and they're very important to listen to and to talk about and share. And they tell us really important things. So we can validate and be there for each other. And that's sort of related to the next principle, which is the importance of belongingness and connectedness in kind of coping with life's adversities. We are born as social creatures. And there's some principles from psychodynamic therapy. And I think Diana Fosha from Accelerated Experiential Dynamic Psychotherapy does a beautiful job with the theoretical understanding that that profound loneliness is really the core of human suffering. It's if we don't feel there's anyone we can share authentically and deeply our moments of pain or even our moments of joy, that loneliness is like that's what our most painful suffering. And what interferes with that is when we are feeling a healthy urge to want to share, oh, I'm feeling this grief and loss. I just realized I'm not able to see something I used to be able to see, and or anything in life that feels stressful, and we're feeling like we don't want to be alone with it. That's actually a healthy yearning for the majority of people. And if we if there isn't anybody we feel we can share that with who will listen to us the way we most need to be supported. So I just want you to think about times where you have shared something really important, maybe even painful, and it was really important to you to not be alone with it. And the listener responded with either advice you hadn't asked for or wanted, or a judgment such as you shouldn't feel that way, or even more kind of horrifying judgments of, well, that was a stupid thing you did, or, you know, something like that. If you ever met with a response of judgment or advice, think about how that felt. And the reality is there's no truth in any judgmental thought or words. Descriptive language comes close to actually describing our lived experience, but there's no truth in judgments. So shoulds and the should nots in the world are pretty toxic to us. And judgments serve to distance us from other people and each other, and even from ourselves if we have internalized judgments for ourselves. Our core knows the truth of our actual experiences. Our younger selves know all the nuances of the moments that they've experienced. And that's why in my therapy work, I'd be a fierce advocate to, we're not going to judge the younger selves of these veterans and the choices they made. And eventually they came to understand, yeah, the younger self knows everything on their plate in those moments of those choices. And we make choices to survive and to do the best we can in the moment. And we often face dilemmas where multiple values could be acted on, and we can only do one thing at a time in the moment. That's a truth. So it means even though we're acting on one value, other values cannot be acted on in those same moments. That's the definition of dilemma. And we face dilemmas every day. And sometimes they're really serious dilemmas. So the importance of belongingness and feeling connected and safe and secure in the authentic sharings is where healing happens, when we can share. And if you ever think of a time where you did share something really important to you, you shared the story with somebody else, and they were just there for you. They listened. You could tell they were really with you, and they gave some sort of expression that they cared about you and that your emotions mattered. Think about how that feels. And that's sort of the foundational blueprint for building secure attachment. And it helps us heal. We heal in those deeper moments of sharing. And the more we can show up real and authentic, I think the healthier we are. And respecting that there are individual differences in just about every realm possible, even our own temperaments. You know, people have different emotionality, and yet we're not going to judge. It's important to not put judgments at each other's feet. Some people are like ducks. It just seems like things roll off their backs, and other people feel everything so deeply and need to process things a lot more. And it just is. So showing up in the moment the way we most want to be is kind of a principle that helps us cope, even when life throws curveballs. Being mindful every day of what are the most important things of how I want to show up. What are my most important values? For me, it's I want to show up with loving kindness and compassion, and I want to strive to try to understand the experiences of others and stand against judgments, because we have been programmed to have more judgmental thoughts than we've ever been taught to just be with and describe our experiences. So our judgments chatter at us all the time, and what we can choose is to not buy into them. So that's the second principle. The third one I want to share with you comes from narrative therapy again, and it's the principle of externalizing problems as separate from ourselves. Our problems are not us. So, and naming the problem can be a helpful way for externalizing it. So when I was working with veterans with coming in saying, hey, you know, my partner is threatening to divorce me if I don't learn how to manage my anger better, we might externalize the anger, and I might invite them, what would you name the anger? well, it's the inferno. And then I might externalize it as though it's a separate person in the relationship with the veteran. So what does the inferno have you doing? What kind of pushes or pulls does it give you, frequently or infrequently? And then what would you name those pushes or pulls? Well, to raise my voice or to yell or to throw things. And then what are the effects? Well, my family's walking on eggshells. What would you name that? Eggshells. Okay, eggshells is the name for that. And then what is it about eggshells? Do you approve of that or not approve of that? Not at all. So narrative therapy is about eliciting the personal agency of what people view as a problem. Because as a therapist, it's not my place to say that's a problem in somebody's life. They're the expert in their lives. I want to hear their meanings and process their emotions. It's kind of the most important takeaways from tonight, if you can. It's that our emotions and our meanings matter, and it's important to share those with other people. But then the externalizing the anger is separate from the veteran, for example, helps us look at it together. So me and the veteran can feel like we're together, we're connecting, there's some connectedness and belongingness as we look at the anger. So in terms of vision loss, I often refer to the blindness or the RP. I put a "the" in front of it. It's not my RP or my blindness. That doesn't feel helpful to me. It's the RP and the blindness, and it has effects in my life. It is like a companion walking alongside me, and it can be pretty tricky at times, and it can be complicated, and emotions can show up like the grief and loss, like deep helplessness, deep frustration sometimes, but also moments of self-pride and mastery, moments of hilarity, like the time one of my college best friends, Shannon, and I, we used to like to go out dancing, and we went to this country dance place, and I had my cane folded up and I'm dancing, and she guided me for years. I knew the rules. She would take my hand and place it on her elbow, and we'd walk off the dance floor. So the band was taking a break, and I don't know why, but I reached out instead of waiting for her to take my hand, and pretty soon I realized what I was grabbing was not her elbow. It was something you might not even grab on a second date, I'll just put it that way. And we just started laughing so hard. We could barely get off the dance floor. We were laughing so hard. So there's and I feel sad, the mix of emotions that show up, because Shannon died unexpectedly of a heart attack in 2012. And yet the emotions are just telling me, of course, how much I love her and I miss her. And I love that we would go dancing together. And I have this memory of what the blindness created that time.
135.
Now, Eric and I have all sorts of blind moments that happen with the dilemmas, and we name them. And I know we only have a few more minutes to talk, but the most important dilemma I think that happens frequently for us is when he likes to offer help unsolicited.
I don't just like to offer it. I like to help unsolicited.
Yes, yes. And because I'm pretty independent, one of my values is self-sufficiency. So early in our dating, you go ahead and tell the story.
And just remarked casually that she was thirsty and she was going to get up and go get a glass of water. But because it was my house, I jumped up and ran to get her a glass of water and brought it back. And it turned out she didn't welcome me doing that. And we had to talk about it a little bit, about helping when you haven't been asked to help. And we came up with a name for it. And it's kind of the line that I wanted to draw in the sand. If you say you're thirsty, I'm going to get you a glass of water.
So when he says that, if you say you're thirsty, it's when he needs to be validated for his core. So every dilemma we face in that moment, his dilemma is he sees that he could do something to help me, and he could either offer the help or not offer the help. So there's always different values at play in a dilemma. For me, the dilemma is I could either accept the help or decline it. And there are values at play for each of those choices. So for him to not offer the help, he would be acting on a value of supporting my
Independence.
independence and self-sufficiency, right? And if I were to accept his help, I'd be acting on the value of absolutely validating he is built to be a helper. It gives him, like, I think, almost joy to help me. And so if I accepted it, even though I didn't ask for it, that would be the value I'd be acting on, loving him, wanting to support the core of who he is. If I declined his help, I would be acting on my own value of self-sufficiency, independence, and just wanting to do it for myself. So, but the naming of it helped us. So it's another takeaway from tonight is talking with the others in your life for the common dilemmas that happen and coming up with a name for it. So he'll say, you know, if you say you're thirsty, to let me know he's really wanting to help, or he might say, another term we came up with to help him know he really is helping me by not helping. We tried for, I think, several days to come up with a phrase that would help him really internalize that he actually is helping. And finally he said,
helping by not helping.
Just help by not helping. And stressing the first part, help. He is helping me by not helping. And so so that's how.
You couldn't see it. I just got an elbow.
I know we're almost out of time. We need to switch to Q&A. So I'm just one other example of a common dilemma, though, is when I'm asking him for help when he's busy. It's really important that the sighted people in our lives know that their wants and needs matter just as much as ours. Unless we're a dependent, that's a different kind of dynamic. But if we're partners, if we're equals, it's really important to me that Eric know his wants and needs matter just as much as mine. Just because I can't see doesn't mean mine are more of a priority. So that would be like a bias because of a disability, and I want to be seen as an equal. So it means he needs to trust that I can wait unless it's something urgent that I need someone with vision in that moment to help me, then I might press the point. But we did name this particular issue with something that happened a few years ago. We like to take naps when we can, and then we have a nap snack. And so he had brought up some leftover pie, cherry pie, and we were having our nap snack. And I had finished my pie, and sometimes I'll ask him to look up something on his iPad, which is usually near us. And so I asked him to look something up, and
I said, can I eat my pie?
he had his mouth still full of pie. I didn't know he was still eating. And it was so funny because he said it with a mouth full.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Say,
can I eat my pie?
Yeah. So, and it was so funny. We just laughed, and that we just realized, that's the name for, that's the phrase we're going to use for when I'm asking him for help when he's busy. He'll say, can I eat my pie? And I know immediately I can wait. It's something he's in the middle of. And it brings up a bit of humor. So humor helps us in our naming of these common dilemmas. And we have other ones, but I'm not sure we have time to go through everything.
9:40.
So.
Well, thank you so much. Dr. Wagner, really enjoyed the presentation. It really resonated with me, and I think many people. And so, can't thank you enough for being here. So at this point, we're going to take many questions. I do have one in the chat room. And so it says it's resonated so much. The suggestions, recommendations, and dismissals of the prognosis are so frustrating. Belonging and sharing are very important. Do you have a recommendation as to where to find a therapist that practices in narrative or ACT moduality and sort of dismissals of the prognosis are so frustrating? So anyways, do you have any recommendations for a therapist?
Yeah. FFB, I serve on the Mental Health Council of FFB right now, and we kind of spearheaded trying to train therapists across the country to be a little bit more aware of the vision loss world. And Rebecca Alexander and a colleague of hers, Charlie, Rebecca's on our council, developed a training with Alma therapists. So Alma's ALMA, and they have therapists in all states. And they just completed their first training of over 100 therapists now. Not every state yet is represented, but FFB is working in collaboration with those therapists. And so they now have therapists who've completed the training listed on the FFB website in their new mental health tab. I forget the exact name, but if you go on the FFB national website, there's a mental health section now, and Alma therapists are listed. And many of them are proficient in ACT. So ACT is, you could probably Google your state for ACT therapist, and you're going to get a bunch, because it's a trans diagnostic model that is values-based. It's wonderful. Narrative therapy by Michael White and David Epstein. You need to clarify, because there's a couple of different types of narrative therapy out there. Michael White, David Epstein are the developers. They're a little harder to come by. And I don't know how you would search in California for sure, but you could even maybe contact the state psychology board or social work board. Maybe they have a way of tracking who else trained. But also AEDP by Diana Fosha is another beautiful model if you want to learn more about your kind of core emotions and our common protective patterns that we learn, and the importance of secure attachment. Accelerated experiential dynamic psychotherapy is also a wonderful approach. And
Excellent. Oh.
What was the other question about the prognosis?
She just said it was very frustrating. Sometimes that prognosis are so frustrating. Belonging and sharing are very important. So I think it was more of a statement than it was really a question. But I do have one other question. That question was from Laura. And this question is from, it's from Erica. It says, I'm a therapist with vision loss, but I'm not affiliated with ALMA. ALMA. Would it be possible for me to get that training? Question.
I don't know. I do know that they're planning to launch it in other with other groups that like it's too early to say right now, but through BetterHelp or other things. For independent therapists, I'm not sure. So more to come. We're just trying, but you could reach out to or send me an email and I'll try to see what I can find out. But
do you want to give your email address?
yes, it's Dr. Ann Wagner, all one word. So it's DRANNWAGNER @gmail.com. So there are many other ways to search for a therapist. You know, just Googling your state, 311 here will get mental health resources. But I have a handout I worked on of kind of frequently asked questions that for some of my longer presentations that I've done in the past, that I thought I could send to Shauna to pass on to you all, and also a handout for clients with low vision to review with a new therapist. So things that are kind of, even if that therapist has not had the special ALMA training or any other like continuous education about vision loss, these points on the handout I think might be helpful. So I can send those two documents, the questions often asked me, and as well as that client handout. And people can use them however you find helpful.
Erica says.
That sounds excellent. Thank you.
And just wanted to note that there are a couple links in the chat that I think Xavier or Kimmy posted, but they have to do with mental health therapist resources. So there's a couple links in the chat. So click on those and hopefully you can get some more information. Are there any other questions? Maybe not in the chat or? I'm not seeing any hands at this point.
Yeah,
So
I'll lower my hand. I had my hand up. This is Sherry. And I did have a question for you. I really loved just how you put together this little presentation because it really resonated with us. Adam and I were kind of laughing and at certain parts because exactly what you guys obviously had gone through. So we have a puppy we have to get a hold of here. What you have gone
Me
through,
too.
of course, so have we. And my question is, in the moment, whether it's you're eating your pie, getting a glass of water, all your phrases that you now know and use, but in the moment, what happens? I mean, are you that cognitive of what's going on with both of you in the moment? Because we're certainly not.
Yeah, I love your question because we are still works in progress and we probably will be until we're both gone from this earth. In the moment, we have tough times where hurts show up. What helps with these principles is we recover pretty fast. And sometimes we can head things off the more aware we are of the core values. When I know that I'm aware of Eric's vulnerabilities for when some of his old defenses from childhood stuff, we all have them. We all have our old protectors that like to show up again, even when we're in fairly healthy relationships today. We have our vulnerabilities because we're human. And the more tired we are, sometimes those old protective patterns show up and we're not our ideal selves. And so we just try to invite grace for each other every day mindfully. Sometimes, we're pretty spiritual, so we'll just kind of pray for whatever help, God can give us each day to stay connected to our core, and to give each other the benefit of the doubt and to remember who we are. And that helps. But no, in the moment, there's still going to be moments, there's going to be rough times. It's how do we navigate them?
But there are times,
Right.
there are times when we absolutely nail it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do really well with the externalizing and the naming
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Okay, well,
So-
that's cool. I appreciate your answer.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that was a great answer. And I think we have time for maybe one more question. It's 7:50, so we want to give time to Sonya as well. But this has been great. So any last questions from anybody? Dr. Wagner, thank you so much for the presentation. Some of the questions I had, you answered them in the presentation. So I would ask one question, and then, I know everyone's different. I know everyone's personality is different. So do you recommend, like when you're going through, for example, the phases and not being able to see things, do you cling on to some hope, some sort of mental, some sort of fix for some of those things, or is it better just to kind of let go and just sort of be able to accept where you're at and that you can't sort of do things? So it's more for me a matter of, I know everyone's different, but it's kind of like, what is a better path, really when you're faced with those
Yeah.
situations?
Tuttle and Tuttle wrote a book about phases of adjustment, and their early phases are, shock, trauma, denial, succumbing in depression, withdrawal. And then there's a phase, and the denial phase is sort of like when somebody is continually saying, I just need to wait for a cue, or wanting third opinions. And that may be exactly what they need to do at that phase. It's sort of a defense. We don't want to judge the defenses. But if we linger in that too long, then we're not functioning. We're not learning how to do things differently so that we can experience the core of who we are is still there. We're still us. We just have to learn to do things differently. And we may need other people to teach us those skills, or have other resources walking alongside us to do the things that still matter to us. So I have met people at these conferences and in my own personal life who are praying every day for a cure, for a cure, for a cure. They so are not fully accepting the progressive vision loss, and I have accepted it, and I think it's because of the advantages of growing up in a blind culture where we were treated, we when you have the kind of messages that we matter and we're equal and of course we can contribute, there really wasn't much of a downside other than we couldn't see some things. And so I know I'm happy and I like who I am, and I happen to be blind. So I see the advantages of accepting and working towards that acceptance, and being able to see that you're still you and you get to shine. We just need support though to do it. I wouldn't be feeling this accepting if I was alone. And that's why your community, your FFB community is so important, because again, most people with vision loss may be the only person in their family or the only person in their community, and they're alone. And that would be devastating, I think. So the more you can feel like you're building a bit of a family with each other in your community, I think that's wonderful. I do babble. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, we can't thank you enough for being here. This was really, really, really good, and I really appreciated both of you. Eric, thank you for sharing your experiences as well. Because I think many of us have partners who can see, and sort of, we're the ones that can't see, and navigating that can be difficult. So, like you said, it can be trying, but it takes time. And so I
And
thank you.
humor.
And humor, right? Exactly. So,
Yeah.
so anyways, I'm going to turn it over to Sherry at this point, and she's going to introduce Sonya.
And we have to sign off. So bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
we're gonna continue our prioritizing mental health and well-being. Our next speaker is Sonya Chapnck. She's the founder of YogaGently, and she's a certified yoga therapist specializing in accessible yoga. Sonya did lose her sight to RP, seems to kind of be the popular,
Oh, mm-mm.
not to RP?
No, it's
Oh,
not RP.
okay.
But I'll talk
Sorry.
about that later.
Sorry about that.
That's
No, I
okay.
want RP for a change. But she does dedicate and empower individuals regardless of the physical or mental health challenges. She also just completed the LA Marathon. Yay.
Woohoo.
And she is a member of a running club called United in Stride. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Sonya.
Thank you, Sherry. And thank you, everyone that is here tonight, devoting your time and your energy and your listening skills to be here in community and to be a part of this mental health awareness meeting. And like Sherry said, my name is Sonya Chapnck. I am the founder of YogaGently. It is a labor of love, I would say. It is my own private practice of yoga therapy. And I installed it, I initiated it in the very early 2000s, late 90s. I've been in the health and wellness industry since the late 80s. So I am aging myself a bit, but I really feel committed and connected to the importance of your health and well-being. And I'm devoted to it for myself. And I've known the repercussions of not taking care of myself. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. And really the value of how I came to learn how to handle these stressors and the forced coping that I had to do due to vision loss. And although it is not RP, I have a particular rare dystrophy called cone rod degeneration. And that was diagnosed when I actually was fresh out of college, and my very first actual position in the world, in the workforce, in the corporate world. And surprise, I got diagnosed with this unusual form of a retinal degeneration. And I did go through a huge shift of the particular trajectory I was on as a young adult, and sort of embracing life fully as potential and all these things that might happen, and my dreams, and where I want to go in the future. And then to be told initially, it took a little while actually to get a diagnosis of, initially it was called inverse retinopathy, and then they later termed it rod cone degeneration. And then it was only about 4 years ago at the Jewel Stein Institute where the retinal specialist who I work with said, actually, your particular condition is really cone rod degeneration, because the cones are the ones that are being affected more. So if you're familiar with the anatomy of the retina, we have the cones and the rods, and those are dealing with the central portion of the visual cortex, and the optic nerve deep in the retina. And so without the ability to have central vision as it slowly degenerated, I had to not be able to drive anymore, and I lost the ability to read, and all of these things that cause grief, cause the extreme frustration of what happens when you aren't moving forward in life as you had predicted. And so because of that, it took quite a few, I would even say years, for me to come to terms with the fact that I am not able to do what I thought I was going to be able to do. The doctors might not even know what is going to happen, because they said you will be totally blind in 3 years, maybe if you're lucky 7 years. And luckily for me, it's been a long time since that diagnosis. I have very limited eyesight. I am considered blind. I have what's considered severe low vision. I have some light dark adaptation, and it's all peripheral. One of the things that helped me manage all the surprises, the unknowns, the discomforts of the shock, really, of what am I supposed to do now? I really thought I had nothing. I thought I had nothing left. I had nothing to look forward to. I really hit the wall of hopelessness and despair, and really even felt many times that my life was over and I had nothing to live for. And so that's pretty much hitting rock bottom. And I was able to find value in exploring what might be something that can help me manage these horrible feelings. What is my lifeline that's going to help me actually be able to keep going? Because I wasn't able to do the job that I had been so proud of and really deeply committed to. And so I was able to, in 1 week, I explored the opportunity to talk, and the talk therapy is very important. And I have the talk therapy continue. I have a therapist. I think those pieces are really important. I also needed something else to give me hope. And I found that through yoga. And there is something that there's a lot of misconceptions about what yoga is. Now, keep in mind, it's very popular now. And if you consider, probably many of you have done yoga before. If you've never done yoga, maybe many of your friends or even family members have done it. Typically, now it's said that about 1 in 10 people do it. In my experience, many more people than that do it. In the United States alone, 36 million people practice yoga. Yoga has a lot of misconceptions. And the type of yoga that I found for myself initially was, can I simply move and breathe and be? And there was a ha-ha moment where I was able to find quiet. I was able to soften all those automatic negative thoughts that were happening, and all the despair and the desperation and the really terror that I was feeling of what is happening. And I don't know, and I don't know where to turn or who to ask questions even. I didn't have resources. I didn't know anybody that was visually impaired or blind, except that my, uncle had night blindness. And so I could talk to him a little bit, but what was happening to me was so different. And so in a moment when I was in a yoga class, I actually found some peace that was a moment of quiet within myself, where there was a little voice that said, even if the worst happened, I'm still okay. And so in that moment, I really was able to find the freedom to explore what else might be possible. And so as I discovered the movement, the physicality, the slowing down and the calming, the real accessing of stress management. As I learned the benefits of that for myself, after several years of putting that into practice, along with finding good therapeutic support, and also shifting gears and being willing to take risks. Where I left my job, I discovered how to take a class even though I couldn't read the manual, and I had these abilities to kind of really accommodate and find accommodation. So it took a little bit. I ended up changing careers because I went from being this deep, devoted environmental scientist in a corporate world to following this idea that yoga has something else to offer. So I moved from Tennessee, which is where I was living at the time, to California with my sister who was moving across the country. So I relied on family, and I was able to really gain a sense of sort of this leap of faith and trust that something else will come from where I want to go with this inner discovery. And so out of that, I got a certification, and then I started practicing, and I taught all over the West LA and Santa Monica and even the greater Los Angeles area down into Redondo Beach. And I was very proactive in how to get what I was learning out there. And because I, at the time, was, and I still am, quite timid and shy, I was terrified of speaking in public. I was terrified of teaching and doing something wrong. And I also, at the time, had a little bit better eyesight. So I was able to really utilize my peripheral vision to get the teaching skills that I needed and to hone in the ability to be of service. And the combination of being connected to what was really a hopeful experience for myself, and to be able to share that, to bring these important tools and mechanisms out into the world was so important to me. It began to give me that sense of purpose that I had felt I lost. And so through that, I found that I could keep going. But then I realized there's more to this than simply teaching yoga. And there's a deep ancient tradition. This philosophy of yoga is thousands of years old. And there's a particular model within ancient yoga that has the viewpoint that each human being, every person, has 5 aspects to their holistic view of life. And I really understood that. That's what in YogaGently, the principles, the philosophy, and the mechanism for where I connect with other people and how I share yoga is not just, can you put your foot behind your head? This is a sort of a westernized view of what yoga is. There are 5 aspects of the human system. And so I'll go over those 5 aspects, but I'd like for you to first consider in your own experience, think about it. And then at the end, you can ask questions and we can maybe parse out some of it. But what do you think is yoga? And if you have never done yoga, what do you think the benefit might be? And if you have done yoga, maybe you're one of those people that does it every day or does it every week or likes a particular kind of class. Maybe you had a bad experience. Every person is individualized, and that's the approach of YogaGently. It's an individualized approach that really takes into consideration all these 5 aspects of your being. First aspect is your physical body. So take a moment and rub your hands together. And when you rub your hands together, what do you notice? If you rub your hands together, or if you're not comfortable rubbing your hands together, if that's not something you're able to do, maybe you can press your feet into the floor or rub your feet or rub the sides of your arms into the sides of your body. Get a sense where there's a little bit of friction and then pause, stop, and notice what you might feel. So feeling is a piece of your being, and a physical feeling, your physical aspect of your being, your physical body. That's the first aspect. Then take a moment. And if you're able to breathe in through your nose, take a deep breath in, whether your eyes are opened or closed. Take a nice long inhale. And then when you exhale, open your mouth and let the breath out. That is the second aspect of your being as a human. It is the breath, your physiological components, your inner workings of your being. Then take a moment. If you're comfortable closing your eyes, let your eyes close. If that's not comfortable for you, simply listen. What are your thoughts doing right now? What are your concepts, and even where are you thinking? Are you being curious? Is it something that you're distracted by? What's going on in your mind? The third aspect of being. And then deeper than that third aspect of your being is your goals, your personality. This is your fourth aspect of your being. Where has all of your values, all of what you deem important, where has that brought you? And then the fifth aspect of your being is what brings you deep joy? How do you connect to what is beyond you? And so we take all these 5 aspects and we put that into practice. And that putting it into practice would mean collaborating, whether we work one-on-one or we work in a group. And that's a totally separate call or lecture, I imagine. Now, in the place of exploring, what does yoga offer you? What does your own well-being, your wholeness, your connection to your well-being? It includes not only what is contained within you and how you take care of yourself from a holistic standpoint, but also how does your family, how does the people that you are connected with, how does your socialization, this group as FFB and the community that it builds, where else do you have community? Is it in your family? Is it a one-to-one? Where do you find your deep connection with others? And that is a key component to how you can provide your own wellness. And oftentimes, our family members, whether they are visually impaired or not, may not completely understand your challenges, your struggles. I loved how Anne and Eric talked about their way of communicating and identifying how there is a need, a desire, and an intention in how things get accomplished. This is a very important piece. You must find it for yourself also. So self-awareness is really important. And how you fine-tune that self-awareness is practice. Within practice, breath is first. And we know that our breath is directly linked to our nervous system. And so as part of mental health awareness and our own caring for our well-being, when we understand that we have these things that are frustrating, or we get help from someone that we don't want help from, or we want help and we can't get that help, there are myriad of ways that we end up not being able to get our needs met, or getting our needs met and then feeling very good about that. All of these pieces are important to help our family members, our people that are in willingness to bring support, to give freedom and clear communication is very important in allowing us to explore how are we able to accomplish what we want to accomplish. And sometimes when you think of, well, maybe I want to try something new. Maybe I want to experience a yoga class. How would I even go about doing that? So, of course, nowadays the gym has a lot of different options. Almost every local gymnasium, local fitness center, Orange Theory, Planet Fitness, a lot of these different, the Y, all these different places offer yoga. They also offer, if you're a visually impaired person, they might offer assistance from there. If you were to work with YogaGently, there are Zoom classes, and once in a while, since COVID, we switched over to mostly Zoom, but once in a while we'll be in person. And when we do in-person events, it's a very fun and uplifting experience. In order to understand if you are visually impaired or blind and you have never done yoga, what is it like to experience, and is it even impossible? Because some of those misconceptions are, oh, I can't because I can't see, or oh, I can't because I'm very stiff, I'm not flexible, I can't be quiet long enough, it's too hard to do something that's slow or something that's challenging. So all of these questions that arise as we kind of explore, well, what's new? What can I try that might be something? We're going to do another little experiment in that physical mind, body, breath connection. If you're willing, place your hands at the top of your shoulders. And then when your hands lightly touch at the top of your shoulders, drop your elbows in towards each other, and then bring your elbows out towards each other. And kind of do that a couple of times. Notice, oh yeah, ooh, one side can't really go, the other side, ooh, that maybe it feels symmetrical or asymmetrical. Maybe there's discomfort in even bringing your hands that far up. So then you might modify and bring your hands to touch and lift one elbow and then lift the other elbow. If you can do something that simple, then you're doing yoga. But what makes it really yoga, because right now you're just moving your body around, pause, find a position where you can place either your hands at the tops of the shoulders or your hands touching together or somewhere else that feels comfortable. Take a breath in through your nose if you can. As you inhale, sweep your elbows out to the side. Then as you exhale, if you can, breathe out through your nose or your mouth and drop your elbows down. Then you've brought conscious awareness and a connection dynamically to your mind and your body and your breath. Breathe in, open arms, either elbows up, or you might even extend your arms open. Breathe out, elbows down, arms relax. Do it one or more times. Maybe you close your eyes. Maybe you try and tune into your breath a little differently. And maybe what you might notice is that all of a sudden, all you notice is that interconnectedness, which in yoga philosophy we call integration between mind and body and breath. The word yoga really means union. And what we're doing is bringing this connection of mind and body and breath together. And in that, what you're doing is settling your nervous system, creating a sense of equanimity, and possibly it might be the opposite, where you're creating yourself an openness that brings an uplifted quality because all of a sudden you've shifted into a place where you've created circulation and you have created a sense of empowerment. And that is what YogaGently is all about. And what I fell in love with and why it was such a lifeline for me. And that gave me the impetus to be brave, to try things that are new, and be able to really continue to follow my passions, not only as someone that loves to share this amazing ancient tradition, but also to really give each and every person that I come into contact with, I hope, that there's a quality of hopefulness, that regardless of what you're dealing with in the challenges of life, whether you have blindness from birth or whether you had some kind of vision loss due to an accident, or maybe you are a caretaker of someone who has a vision loss, or maybe not, you're just a part of FFB because you believe deeply in the work that they're doing and you're learning more about what it's like and what other things people are able to do regardless of what may have been set as a limit. To not have limitations and to kind of shift that paradigm that you aren't able to do things because of what has been taken away or what shock or surprise life has offered, that you can actually find new ways and discover new things that give you purpose and provide you fulfillment. And I think I may have covered everything, I hope. And if not, I welcome whatever else you might have questions about. YogaGently is currently online. If you are interested, it's www.yogagently.com. And there are weekly classes that I run. There's community offerings and opportunities, and there's a lot on the website that are even little free samples of quieting the mind, tuning into the body, and being with those 5 aspects of being.
Well, thank you so much, Sonia. That's been really, really interesting, and it was just fun to kind of do these exercises with you. I have very little experience at this, so it was really great. We're going to open it up for questions now, and just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, and it's sort of a question: are there pre-recorded videos on your website, and in
Yes,
addition to sort of live?
yes,
Okay, got it.
absolutely. There's a lot of content there, and it's fun. If there's something that you're looking for that's not there, I can also create something that's personalized, and that's also really one of the beauties of when we do in-person events, that we can kind of cater whatever is happening and whoever shows up what we want to do. So that's another part of what is so great about catering and really tailoring it to the difference between yoga therapy and teaching yoga. Because as a yoga instructor, I taught for many, many years as a yoga instructor in the studio and one-on-one. And I actually worked at the Venice Family Clinic as an intern, and then I worked there for 5 years in their pain management clinic and in their mental health support. So I have a lot of experience with all of that. The difference with yoga therapy compared to teaching yoga: a yoga teacher can get 200 hours of training and teach. A yoga therapist has to have a minimum of 1,000 hours. And I did a clinical component to it, including my internship and all that. So I have over 2,000 hours of training and a myriad of different kinds of offerings, like was mentioned by Sherry. So it makes it really interesting and fun, and there's a lot that we can do together. So thanks for your question, Jeffrey.
Sonia, this is Shauna. I don't know if this is this is probably more of a statement than a question, but
Okay.
yoga is something I've been trying to get into, and I've been very fearful about it. And I just want to say that you've made it seem very accessible. You've debunked some of the myths or some of the things that I thought maybe, you know, about, what it was, what it wasn't.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you for that. It was very educational, and I think you've made it much more approachable.
Oh,
And I'm
thanks,
looking
Mom.
forward to, to starting.
That's great. And I think, yeah, there is so many, like you said, debunking is really important. I think educating. I think the most important piece, if you are wanting to try to do something, is to make sure you do some research. Because if you're going to the gym, that teacher might have more than 200 hours of training, but you want to feel much more safe. So it's better to have somebody that's really certified, and as a certified yoga therapist through the International Association of Yoga Therapy, there's a lot more that can be approached for you then, and you also have the ability to ask questions and start slow. YogaGently is the name because it's really important to have a gentle approach for yourself, because injury is one of the first things that can happen that might prevent you from going back again. So we want to avoid all injuries and take it in a way that's appropriate for you. Thanks,
Um,
Shauna.
is there any other questions? I have one more, but I would like to hear from some other people if there's any other questions.
Yes, please.
So far, I haven't seen it, but there's still a little bit of time. So
Okay.
talk to me a little bit about Sonia. Is one of my main hesitations is I'm very inflexible. I do
Yeah.
not, I cannot, I could barely even do much of anything. My partner, my wife, she always makes fun of me because of my lack of flexibility. Is that something where I could still do yoga, still get something out of it, even though I might not be able to do all of the stretches and moves and stuff like that?
Absolutely. And honestly, my favorite type of person is someone like you is like, I can't do yoga because I'm too stiff. First of all, I want to let you know, and everybody else that has that mindset, you have a built-in mechanism that's going to protect something else.
Thank you.
That is going to save you because your built-in mechanism is there to protect you. Your stiffness can actually be, you can become more is regardless of what you think your physical capabilities are. This is important. Mobility doesn't mean you have to touch your toes today in a yoga class. Now, after 5 years of doing yoga, maybe you can touch your toes. I had that experience where I was and I didn't really talk about this, but when I was in that shift between, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I don't know. And I was still trying to work, and I was very pent up. So I went to the gym, and I became obsessed with bodybuilding. So I got very strong, and I also did a lot of heavy lifting and got very stiff, right? Because I was like pumping iron. And so because of that, when I did my very first yoga class, I literally could not touch my knees. My hamstrings and back were so tight. So that was a good thing, because if I'd have tried harder and gone to touch my toes, regardless of that piece of my body saying, you're too stiff to do that, I could have actually injured myself. But I listened, I was stiff, I acknowledged and respected and actually really honored my body, because I was scared too, because I didn't want to do all this weird stuff. I took it very slow. And lo and behold, to this day, I can touch my toes. So it's one of those things that might not have to be your goal. What you want is freedom and mobility within your body, where you can feel good and know that you're taking care of yourself without injury. If that answers the question.
No, that was great advice. And we're certainly going
Yeah.
to visit your website and get started and just try it out. We've been wanting to do it for many years. And so I think
Yeah.
this is kind of going to be the
Reach out.
catalyst to that.
Email me with questions. I'd be happy to even guide you to the first steps for yourself if you really need to. Or if you find a local place that does yoga, call me if you have questions. Reach out, text, email, however you want to do it.
Fix. So one more question, and it's via the chat, and it says, any particular moves or recommendations for plus size, 200 pounds or more, to do yoga without injury? Great question.
Yes, yes. So regardless of your body size, all the same principles hold true. Now for you, or for anybody, it doesn't matter. If you are unable to get down on the floor, chair yoga is where you start. If you are able to get down on the floor, then you do simple floor work and you do things that make you feel comfortable and safe. Something as simple as being in your bed and starting a morning practice where you breathe in, you wiggle your toes, you breathe out, you wiggle your fingers. You are connecting mind, body, and breath. You're helping your circulation. You're helping your cognitive functioning, because you're trying to mimic what your mind is telling your breath and your body to do. These are all really great places to begin. And that doesn't cause any injury. So I think it'd be very difficult to wiggle your toes while you're resting in bed before you get out of bed to hurt yourself. So there are absolute ways to personalize it and to make it comfortable for you. And that is how I would answer that.
Thank you so much.
Does that help?
This
Yeah.
has been great. It's been a great presentation. Really appreciate your time presenting to
Aw,
our
thank
community.
you.
I'm now going to turn it over to Sherry, and if she could have
Okay,
some
before
final
you do
thoughts.
that, I just want to say thank you to all of you, and especially to Sherry and Adam for inviting me. And it's such an honor to be here. And I am excited to be a part of FFB now. So thank you for introducing me to the group and for being available for community. I think it's really important.
Sonia, thank you very, very much. As much as you were excited to be here, we were all very excited to have you as a speaker. And I'm sure this won't be the last time because I know the other things that you're doing. And yeah, I think this is a community that will want to hear from you more. So thank you so
Yeah.
much. I know we'll be in touch.
Yes.
We're going to wrap things up. Remember, you will be getting e-blasts and watch for our social media posts on the different events that are coming up. I hope you got something out of tonight. That's our goal, is truly just to bring us all together. We have a lot of commonalities, much more than differences. And as Adam always says and ends in all our emails, you're not alone. We're all fighting this fight together. And I think this has been terrific. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.